tonight. My name is Chris, and I am the college pastor around here at Brazos Fellowship. I have been on staff at Brazos Fellowship for 12 years, and I've been doing, yes. And hey, y'all may not know this, Brazos Fellowship is celebrating 20 years next month. Yeah, that's awesome. We're like 4 weeks out from celebrating 20 years, which is crazy. And I've been here for 17 of those 20 years. I'm old. Yeah, I'm old. But hey, so glad y'all are here. A little bit about me. So I am married to a much better woman than I am a man. Leisha, she is awesome, and her picture is going to come up in just a second. We've been married for 15 and a half years. We have 2 kids, and Landry, Landry on the outside is 9. She's in 3rd grade, and then Campbell is 7. She is in 1st grade, and man, we are very lucky to be their parents, and they're pretty awesome most of the time. A few interesting things about me. I love to read. I love sand volleyball, and I am not too old to kick your butt. Bring it. And I am the PA announcer for Texas A&M softball. Yes, I have been doing that for 15 years. Season 16 starts in just a couple weeks. So that's a little bit about me. I want to know more about you, but not right now. Okay, I'll get very distracted if y'all all start telling me about yourself. But please come say hi afterward. Tell me a little bit more about you. Here's the deal. When we gather together, there's like all kinds of people in the room, right? You have some people and some students in the room who maybe grew up in church. There are probably some of you who are here tonight trying to figure out if you want to be in church. We have people who have found deep community, and we have people who are like, man, I have not found my people, and I am feeling lonely and isolated, and maybe that is why you're here tonight. It's crazy that already in the last 48 hours, we have had multiple stories hearing about students who are looking for community, looking for a place to get plugged in. We have a form on our website that is actually kind of hard to find at brazosfellowship.com on the college page, but it is there. And there's a form that's like, hey, do you want more information about 242? And we've had 3 students in the last 48 hours fill that out. And I literally was just looking at one. I don't think they're in the room. Maybe they are, but they just filled it out 45 minutes ago, so they're probably not here. And they asked the question, is it going to be hard to make friends in this group? And I think the reality is that we all feel that or have felt that at some point. And so I want to talk a little bit tonight about this word, this buzzword that everybody loves to throw around that's really popular in Christian circles and in church communities, and it is the word community. Right? We talk about it here. We talk about community and how important community is. So we're going to do something a little different to get started. This is going to make some of y'all really uncomfortable, and I'm here for it. And some of y'all are going to love it, and I'm here for that too. I need you to huddle up with 2 or 3 people beside you. Does not matter if you know them or not, okay? And I want you to answer this question. I'm only going to give you 90 seconds, okay? But I want you to answer this question. How would you define, y'all listen up or you're not going to know. How would you define community? I don't want you to come up with a perfect sentence that defines community. What I need is 3 or 4 characteristics or aspects that you think are necessary for community. Okay, you got about 90 seconds. Go. Okay, about 10 more seconds. 10 more seconds. I do back there. Okay. Okay, let's bring it back in. They say don't ask a question you don't know how they're going to answer, and it makes me nervous because sometimes I'm not sure what's going to come out of y'all's mouth. But who wants to tell me what y'all talked about? Somebody throw a few things out. What? Grace, okay.
Many people coming together with similar ideals, wanting the same thing.
People coming together.
Love.
Love, okay. Comfort, nice. Welcoming and uplifting. Trust. Having each other's back. Is that what you said? Yeah. Love it. Okay, here's the thing. I agree with everything you just said. I think all of those things can thrive in community. But here's what I know is true. I think that sometimes when we hear the word community, our first thought maybe goes to like a group of people, right? Because you have life groups and home groups and Bible studies and community groups and missional community groups and like all these like different makeups. They might be multi-generational or just college students. They might be adult-led or student-led, co-ed, same gender. There's like so many different expressions and flavors of these groups. And especially in a church setting, a church context, I think for the average person, their mind immediately goes to that. And they're like, that's what community, you like go join a group, that's what community is. But it also is true that if you get together in a room full of people, whether there's 100 people or there's 1,000 people, it's going to be really hard to come to a consensus and concise single explanation and definition of what community is, right? Because there's a lot of different ways to describe it. There's a lot of different ways to explain it. But here's why this is problematic. We build our expectations based on our beliefs. We create expectations of what something's going to look like, what something should look like, based on what we believe to be true about that thing. You know that this is true. Anybody ever used Rate My Professor before? Yeah. Anybody ever had a bad experience from Rate My Professor before? Yeah. See, there's a few hands. So what we do is we get on to something like Rate My Professor. We're looking for the easiest A, the highest grade point average, right? We're looking for the coolest professor. We're talking to our friends. We're creating an expectation of what our experience is going to be based on our beliefs of how that semester is going to go. But then you roll up and what is easy to one person is not easy to another person. So even though they have a high GPA average for their class, it's just really hard for you. And so you're struggling just to get a C. Or maybe something happened to the professor and they're just mean, right? Like they used to be cool and they had all these great reviews and then something happened and now they're just not. Or maybe you just don't get along, whatever. And it impacts your experience for the entire semester because you created expectations based on what you believe to be true about that circumstance, but then your expectations were not met and it impacted your experience. And when it comes to something like community, this can be a problem because you have an idea of what community should look like and I have an idea of what community should look like, and we're going to like bump into each other and like kind of live around each other, but we have these expectations and so often they go unmet. And even though we hear all the time, man, go to church to experience community. Man, get involved in a Bible study and you're going to find community. Man, college is the space where you're going to have the greatest friends of your life. You're going to find the best community. And yet, so many of us, whether all the time or just sometimes, feel lonely and isolated, alone, and feel like we don't actually have this community that has been promised to us, and our expectations are not being met based on what we believe we should be experiencing. This is a problem when it comes to community, except I'm not going to stand up here and give you a definition of community. Because, I know, right? Because I think, and I believe with all of my heart, that community can express itself in a lot of different ways. I think that it changes from person to person, group to group, and I know for a fact from experience that it is different based on the season of life you are in. My community as a 42-year-old married guy with 2 kids looks significantly different than your community. It should. And if it doesn't, then that's a different problem, right? Like our community looks different, but here is what I can say. There are a ton of examples, and there's a lot of truth presented to us in Scripture of the characteristics, which some of y'all nailed, characteristics of what should be displayed in community, the things that we should be looking for and participating in. So that's what I want to do tonight, and we're going to look specifically and zoom in on the relationship that Jesus had with his disciples. Okay, there's a lot of different opportunities to find community. There's a lot of different expressions, but we're going to look specifically at the relationship between Jesus and his disciples. And we're going to look at a few characteristics. It's not going to be a holistic list. We're not going to go through every single story and every single moment, but I think there are 3 repeating themes that we see over and over in Jesus and his relationship with these 12 disciples. And the first one may seem obvious, but it's proximity. Proximity matters. Who you are actually around matters. Now, for Jesus and his disciples, they literally lived life together, right? Like their context was completely different. I'm not sure about you, but I don't practice communal living, okay? I don't travel from town to town by foot and sleep on the side of the road with my bros. Like that's just not something that I do. Maybe if you live in a house like that, there are some college houses that's basically communal living. There's 12 or 15 people in the same house. That's crazy, y'all. But if you do that, maybe you have a little bit of an experience of what communal living looks like. But I get it. Our context is different. But here is what you cannot escape. Even though the way that they did things was different, there was an invitation and an exception of that invitation. Jesus said, hey, come follow me. Come spend time with me. This was not just, hey, I have some really cool stuff that I want to share with you or some ways that I want to challenge you. And so we're going to agree to meet together twice a week. That wasn't what the invitation was. The invitation was, hey, come follow me. Come, let's do life together. Let's move in the same direction together. And because of the disciples saying yes to that, man, they were around for some crazy stuff. They got to see some unbelievable stuff that Jesus did. This is not a comprehensive list, but they were there when Jesus fed the 5,000, when he fed the 4,000, when Jesus walked on water, he was literally walking to the disciples when he did that. The healing of the blind man at Bethsaida, the raising of Lazarus from the dead, the raising of the widow's son at Nain, the raising of the daughter of Jairus. 3 people coming back from the dead, they were there and got to experience it. That's crazy. They were there when Jesus cursed the fig tree, when they found the coin in the fish's mouth, the woman with the issue of blood, the 10 lepers, the woman at the well, all of this stuff. Some of it was miracles, some of it was lessons, some of it was just moments. They got to experience so much life. Now, here's what I'm not saying. If you decide to go and do life with somebody else in this room, you're going to see them feed 5,000 people with 5 loaves and 2 fish. I'm not saying that's going to happen, okay? Maybe it will. And if it does, let me know. That would be really cool. But what you cannot escape is if they had not made the decision to be in close proximity, they never would have been around to experience any of those things. So much happens in our life, highs, lows, and everything in between. We will never have the full experience of those moments with the people that are closest to us if we do not make the decision to be in close proximity with them. Okay, this is so much more than 90 minutes on a Sunday morning or 90 minutes on a Wednesday night or going and sitting in somebody's living room and circling up for community group or Bible study. Those are amazing things, and you should do those. And I'm going to highlight that in a minute. But proximity is so much more than just, hey, let's pick a place and let's gather together. It's the along the way moments. We see this in Acts. This is Paul talking to the elders at the church in Ephesus, and he says this in Acts 20, verse 31. Watch out, remember the 3 years that I was with you. This is basically a short half of a college career. I was going to say a college career, but nobody does it in 3 years anymore. Watch out, remember the 3 years I was with you, my constant watch and care over you, night and day, my many tears for you. This is Paul saying, hey, I was fully invested in this relationship with y'all. I spent time with you. We did life together night and day. We cared for each other. We were invested in this, and look at what God did. Here's something that I think as I read this a few weeks ago was really, really challenging to me. Proverbs 27:10 says this: better is a neighbor who is near than a brother who is far away. This verse places a higher priority on proximity than longevity. places a higher priority on proximity, the neighbor who is near, than longevity of the brother who is far away. It's saying it is that important that you pay attention to the people that are close to you, the people that are going to show up consistently. And I'm camping out here because I think that this point matters so much. Zoom out for just a second and think about this. In this season right now, let's just look at this year, 2025, just this semester, because some of you don't know what comes after May. Could you say yes to any of this? Do you believe that God has called you to the roommates that you have? That God has called you to the apartment complex that you live in? That he's called you to the school, Blinn, Rellis, Texas A&M, the major that you have, the place that you work, the people that you hang out with, the church or the community that you find yourself involved in? Could you say yes to any of those things that you're like, yeah, I feel like God has brought me to this place in this season? If you can say yes with any degree of confidence, then you need to put down roots. You need to be where your feet are. Psalm 139 says that God charts the path before us and he tells us where to stop and rest. And if in this season, God has told you to stop and rest in this place, and I'm not talking exclusively about 242, but if he's called you to rest in the place where he has you, then you need to be present. And so often I see not just students, but I see this the most with students because I get to be around y'all all the time. I see students who come in, they're a part of this ministry, but they never really get invested. Maybe they're like, I'm a senior and I just found this place and I'm only going to be here for a year or even a semester, and so it's just not worth it. I'll just invest when I get to the next place. Or maybe they come in and they're like, man, this place is pretty cool and it's worth continuing to show up, but I have my hometown friends, I have my previous community, and we snap every day and we jump on FaceTime a few times a week and we stay connected, and I love my hometown people, and that's really my community. And so y'all are cool, but those are really my people. But Proverbs 27:10 says, better is a neighbor who is near than a brother who is far away. Proximity matters. Or maybe you actually realize proximity matters, and so you find yourself consistently going back to your previous community, going back home most weekends and and I'm not in any way saying that you need to abandon those people or cut off those relationships. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I am challenging you with and challenging me with is put down roots where God has placed you in this season. And even if it's only for 3 months, it's worth it, because you're going to need to do this for the rest of your life. And if you can discover how to do this now in a rich way, in an environment where it's kind of handed to you. I'm not saying community is easy. In fact, the exact opposite is true. Community is really hard, but we create a lot of environments while you're in college that are hey, if you'll put forth the effort, community is here for you to find. So proximity really, really matters, but it is more than just who you're around. It's how you choose to engage in those relationships. The second thing we see about Jesus with the disciples is service. This is a theme that consistently shows up. Not only did Jesus spend a lot of time with them, but he regularly taught about what it looked like to be a servant, how they should be serving each other, and he demonstrated and modeled it for them, what it looked like to serve them in community. The best example that we see of this is in John 13. If you have been around church at all, you have heard this story. This is when Jesus washes the disciples' feet. And I'm not going to give you the whole story. There's entire sermon series about this one story, but here's what I find so interesting. Jesus is in this moment with his disciples, these guys that he has been doing life with now for several years. They've seen so much, they've experienced so much, and he chooses to humble himself and to start to serve them. And there are strong objections from the guys. They're like, no, Jesus, absolutely not. You cannot do that. And yet he gets down on his knee, he grabs a towel, he washes their feet. And then he says this at the end in John chapter 13, verse 15. I have given you an example to follow. Do as I have done to you. John 13, 15. I have given you an example to follow. Do as I have done to you. In the moment, in the context, because context matters, Jesus is specifically speaking to a small group of people where he has just demonstrated an act of service in close community. He did not go around washing the masses' feet. He didn't go around and like show up to the crowd and be like, hey, do you want lunch or do you want me to wash your feet, right? Like that he didn't do that. He did this in this intimate moment. Now, I understand and agree it is godly and amazing to serve the least of these. We are challenged and called to do that, okay? But when Jesus specifically is talking about this act of service, it is in the context of close, intimate community. And he is challenging them. And there are not very many moments where Jesus explicitly, specifically says, hey, what I just did, I want you to go do. He makes broad statements of like, hey, everything I have taught you, everything you have heard me said, like go live this out. But there are not a lot of moments where he says, hey, this exact thing, this is what I want it to look like. Does that mean you need to wash your roommate's feet? Probably not. If that's your thing, go for it, right? But that I don't think that that's what Jesus is saying. I think what he's modeling is humility. I think what he is modeling is selflessness. I think what he's modeling is prioritizing someone else's needs above our own needs. And he says, hey, I just gave you this example. I want you to go do this. And it's in response to this. We see the early church in Acts 2:42. Familiar? Acts 2:42 through 47, we've heard this, but check this out. All the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and to the sharing in meals, including the Lord's Supper and to prayer. A deep sense of awe came over them all, and the apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders. And all the believers met together in one place and shared everything they had. They sold their property and possessions. They shared the money with those in need. They worshiped together at the temple each day. They met in homes for the Lord's Supper. They shared meals with great joy and generosity, all the while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all the people. And the result is that each day the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. There's so much happening in this text, but what I love is that this is a response to Jesus' command. I've given you an example, now go do this. And they made this decision to go all in and invest with each other, to meet each other's needs. Service is meeting the needs of the people that are closest to you, that you have close proximity to. And I get it, in college, you're like, I can't even buy them a cup of coffee, much less like pay their rent. Like I can't do that. I don't have possessions to sell. My parents have those possessions, and if I sold them, they would not be happy with me, right? And so like I understand that, but that's not exclusively what he's talking about, because service can show up in a lot of different ways. It can be meeting a very specific need, and there are needs that y'all can meet, by the way, not just physical, tangible needs. There are needs that we can meet in each other's lives, but it also can be encouragement. It can be like rooting somebody on, encouraging them in the fight when they're in the middle of it. Do we have any runners in the room? Anybody? Okay. Yes, you ran a marathon. You're my hero. A halfway runner. Wow, there's like nobody else. This is awesome. Okay, so I have run a couple of half marathons. I'm not a good runner, but here is what I love. When I am running, it's hard and it sucks and I'm old and I need all the encouragement I can get. But then you come over the hill or you come around the corner and you see this. Aww. Yeah, this was like almost 2 years ago, so they're all little and cute. But they're holding up these signs that are saying, hey, Daddy, run faster. We're bored. Please hurry up. We want to go home. No, but they're holding up these signs of encouragement. They're like, hey, we know you're not to the finish line yet. We know that this is hard. We know that you're still going, but you got this. We're in your corner. We have your back. Like that's an act of service. Like encouraging each other, coming alongside of each other is just as important. Galatians 6:2-3 says this, share each other's burdens. And in this way, what? Obey the law of Christ. If you think you are too important to help someone, you are only fooling yourself. You are not that important. Thank you, Paul. I needed that reminder. You are not that important. But he's like, hey, this is important. Lean in. You need to recognize there are going to be things in your life you cannot carry by yourself. This verse says it. If we could carry everything by ourselves, we wouldn't need somebody else to bear our burdens. But we can't, so we need each other. But this has to be like bi-directional. right? I need to be in a place where I can carry your burdens sometimes, and you need to be in a place where you can carry my burdens. And if we're in close, authentic community with each other, if we are in close proximity and choosing to do life together, we need to be serving each other. My favorite example of this is Mark 2. If you've been around 242 or me at all, you've heard this story before, but I love it so much. There's a guy. He's paralyzed, and he's laying on a mat. And Jesus comes to town. In Mark chapter 2, he comes to Capernaum. Check this out, verses 1 through 4. When Jesus returned to Capernaum several days later, the news spread quickly that he was back home. And soon the house where Jesus was staying was so packed with visitors that there was no more room, even outside the door. And while he was preaching God's word to them, 4 men arrived carrying a paralyzed man on a mat. They couldn't bring him to Jesus because of the crowd, so they dug a hole through the roof above his head, and then they lowered the man on his mat right down in front of Jesus. I think the reason that I love this story, for several reasons, but one is that it is absolutely absurd. My brain, when I read stuff like this, I just start thinking about, what would it have been like to be in the room? Jesus is preaching, I'm sure it's a fire sermon, right? He's the literal word of God, preaching himself, and just bringing it. He's literally bringing the house down because the roof starts caving in. And can you imagine? So I just love this. And here's what's so absurd about this story. The friends hear Jesus is in town. They have a friend who's paralyzed laying on a mat, and they pick him up and they go. And when they get there, it's sold out, right? There's no tickets for sale. The room is packed even outside the door. And so they do the most logical thing. Rather than wait until the crowd disperses and then meet Jesus, they're let's just climb up on the roof and dig a hole, right? Makes perfect sense. Here's what I love. Jesus sees the need. He meets the need. We didn't read that. He heals the guy. He forgives his sins. It gets into this whole debate with the Pharisees about what's easier for me to say your sins are forgiven or pick up your mat and walk, right? But don't miss this. In this moment, the guy on the mat had a 0% chance of getting to Jesus on his own. He could not do it. He was paralyzed, which means he can't walk, in case you didn't know that. He had no shot at getting to Jesus on his own. He needed the people in closest proximity to him to serve him through carrying him to Jesus. And so as you think about the people who are closest to you, where are they carrying you? And maybe a more convicting question is, where are you carrying the people closest to you? Because it has to be bi-directional. Community takes more than one person. You can't be in community with yourself unless you're God, because God the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, it's a whole community thing. But we can't do that, okay? So it takes multiple people, and if you're in community with someone, it's both give and take. Some days you're going to be on the mat and you need people to carry you, and other days you're the one picking up the mat, carrying other people. Okay, we have talked about proximity, we have talked about service, and then the last one that I want to talk about is challenge. Jesus consistently is challenging and correcting and teaching and instructing his disciples on numerous occasions. We see this in Matthew 8. Jesus is in a boat and he's taking a nap and a storm pops up. Check this out, verses 23 through 27. Then Jesus got into the boat, started across the lake with his disciples, and suddenly a fierce storm struck the lake with waves breaking into the boat. But Jesus was sleeping, and the disciples went and woke him up, obviously shouting, "Lord, save us, we are going to drown." And Jesus responded, "Why are you afraid? You have so little faith." And then he got up, rebuked the wind and waves, and suddenly there was a great calm, and the disciples were amazed. "Who is this man?" they asked. "Even the wind and waves obey him." The disciples are freaking out. They think they're going to die. They wake up Jesus. And Jesus is like, "What?" Verse 26, why are you afraid? I'm in the boat. I'm with you in the midst of this. Psalm 23, when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we will fear no evil, for you are close beside us. He's like, I'm in the boat with you. Why are you freaking out? You have so little faith. There's this moment of challenge and correction and bringing a little bit of perspective to the disciples. We see it again in Mark chapter 9. There's this along the way moment that's happening where they're moving from one place to the next in Mark 9, 33 through 35. After they arrived in Capernaum and settled in a house, Jesus asked his disciples, "Hey, what were you discussing out on the road?" But they didn't answer because they had been arguing about which of them was the greatest. So he sat down, called the 12 disciples over to them, and said, "Hey, whoever wants to be first must take last place and be the servant of everyone." In this moment, we see all three characteristics. We see proximity. Jesus overhears their conversation because they are walking along the road together. He challenges them with the idea of service. He's like, "Hey, this is what it looks like, guys. It's not about you being the greatest. It's about you humbling yourself and you choosing to serve the people around you." We need people in our life that we have given permission to challenge us. You need people in your life that are not impressed with you, because they'll speak truth to you. And they'll give you some perspective and be like, "Hey, first, this storm is not going to kill you. Okay, I know it's scary. I know it feels bad. I know that you haven't hit the finish line yet, but this storm is not going to be the end of you. But why are you freaking out in the first place?" We need those people in our life. We need people that you have given permission to say, "Hey, when you see something, say something. When you see something in my life, I want you to speak up. I want you to challenge me." Now, what this is not is us pointing a finger at everybody who does something we don't like. We talked about that last semester. That's the whole plank in your own eye thing. That's not what this is. This is not calling out every single person in our life because we disagree with their actions. These are people in close proximity that we have stepped into authentic community with, and we are serving them with our life and our choices and our decisions and our habits and our moments. We're doing life along the way, and along the way, wake up, there we go. Along the way, we have these moments. Along the way, we have these moments where we're not always going to get it right. We're not always going to say the right thing. We're not always going to respond in the right way. But we have people around us that we have given permission. We've given them the capacity, and we've asked for them to speak into us, to speak truth over us, to give us perspective when we need it. We're going to close in just a second, but I want to read one more verse. It's James 5:16. It says, "Confess your sins to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed." I think that confession is scary. Confession is something that we hear talked about. And this, I'm not talking about going and confessing to your priest, okay? I'm talking about being honest with the people in closest proximity to you. Being honest and open about where you are, who you are, and what you're doing with the people that you are serving and that are serving you, and allowing them to challenge you in your weakness. Allowing them to challenge you in moments where you need to be corrected, redirected, or given some perspective. But I think confession is one of the most overlooked and probably most important things in Christian community. If you look around your circle and gossip is very prevalent in your circle, confession will kill it. Because when you confess to your close group of people, you have other people who now know truth. Gossip is just giving people the opportunity to come up with their own truth, right? I don't know all the facts, so I'm going to talk to a bunch of other people, and we're going to come up with our own truth of what's actually going on in their life. And then we're just going to keep having these conversations. That's ultimately what gossip is. But when we start confessing to the people in our life, we have people that are speaking truth into us, giving us perspective. It kills gossip. Confession kills gossip. If judgment is big in the people that you hang out with, and you're constantly judging each other and looking down and pointing fingers, confession kills it. Because when you begin to get honest with the people in your circle, when you begin to get honest with yourself, because the only way you can confess is if you're honest with yourself first, when you begin to get honest about things, and then you look around and you're like, well, I'm broken, and you're broken, and you're broken, and you're broken. What are we going to judge each other for? It is the great equalizer. If comparison is running rampant in your mind or in your circle, confession kills it. Because when we open up, when we bring things into the light, it levels the playing field. Confession is so important, and it also brings freedom. When we hide things, when we hold on to them, it takes root inside of us, and we need to bring things into the light. And later on, it says, hey, confess so that you may be healed, and it starts talking about what it looks like for us to pray for each other, to invest and speak into each other. It brings about healing. Confession is so important in community. You need to be challenged. You need to have people speaking truth over your life. So in a couple of minutes to wrap up practically, what can this look like this semester in your environment? Specifically, when it comes to this idea of like challenge and confession, I think you need a time, a place, and a plan. I'm real big, and I've said it multiple times, along the way moments, okay? So we're not just talking about gatherings, but if you would like to experience depth of community where you can serve each other, you can challenge each other, and you can confess to each other, you need a time, a place, and a plan. I didn't come up with this. I most often hear JP, Jonathan Pecluda, say this, but he didn't come up with it either. A time, a place, and a plan. For us here with 242, that most often shows up in what we call D groups, discipleship groups, okay? This is a group of 3 to 5 people that are same gender, and they gather together pretty regularly, consistently. And the goal of these groups is to create space for proximity, service, and challenge. And these D groups specifically revolve around 2 questions. What is God saying, and what am I going to do about it? What is God saying, and what am I going to do about it? I think you can apply this to literally anything. When you come together with a group of friends in a D group or whatever, it doesn't matter what you name it, whatever you call it. When you come together and you confess, maybe it's a sin struggle, something that you're wrestling with, hey, what does God say about this? Let's go to his word. Let's find out what God has to say. And now, okay, how are you going to apply that? What are you going to do about it? Let's create a plan, because when there's a plan, there can be accountability. So what is God saying, and what are you going to do about it? If you are struggling to be loving to your roommates, and there's just all this drama and tension at home, and you're really wrestling with it, you bring that to your group, and you're like, man, once again, my roommates suck. It's not me, it's them, definitely them, right? Well, hey, what does 1 Corinthians 13 say about what love looks like? What's the first one? Love is patient. Well, what's the second one? Kind. Yeah. So, hey, can you tell me over the last week, what does it look like? What does your patience look like with your roommates? Have you been kind to your roommates? This isn't judgment, right? This is perspective and correction. You know what else it says? It says, hey, love keeps no record of wrongs. Love is not easily irritable. Love always hopes, always trusts. Love never fails. Man, what would it look like this week? If I'm in community with you and I'm sitting across from you and you're confessing in this struggle, it's like, man, what would it look like in light of what God has said? What would it look like for you this week to create a plan on how to love your roommates well in light of 1 Corinthians 13? Man, how can I walk with you this week? How can I come alongside you, create some accountability, not so that I can point my finger at you, but so that I can hold up a sign to say, hey, I know that this is really, really hard, and I know that you're tired and worn out and you just want it to be over, but keep going. I want to serve you this week in this way. What is God saying? What am I going to do about it? We've talked about 3 things. There are so many other aspects of what community can look like. I'm not trying to give you a finite definition, but I think you need to be present with the people that are in close proximity to you, and you need to make a commitment to do life with them. It's more than just a gathering. It's more than just a couple of nights a week. It's like becoming friends, like actually existing and coexisting together. I think you need to humble yourself and serve each other. That cannot just be you meeting all of their needs. You have to be vulnerable yourself and let them meet your needs. It also cannot be just you letting them meet your needs, but not giving anything in return. That's called a parasite, not community. And it also must have challenge as a part of a relationship. Because if it doesn't, then y'all are just friends. You're not community. It's just a social club. It's not community. It must have challenge. And so what I want to challenge you with is to think about, man, which of the three of these is the hardest for me? What does God want to do in my heart and in my life this semester to see growth? Maybe in one of these, maybe in two, maybe in all three of these. What does it look like for you this semester to take a step to invest in authentic community? Because it's not going to just show up on your doorstep. We're going to keep creating an environment. We're going to keep inviting you in. But if you don't choose to engage, if you don't choose to serve and to be open to and to provide challenge, like, you're not going to experience authentic community. It's going to be hard. It's going to be messy. You're going to mess up. The people in your community are going to fail you. They're going to disappoint you. They're probably going to hurt you. The problem is that we have built a muscle that tells us that when we experience conflict, we run. We have to go through it. We have to fight through it. We have to stick around long enough to say, hey, you suck, but I love you and I care about you and I understand that it's worth it, so I'm here for it. Let's go. We're going to work this out. We're going to figure this out. You have to get some grit if you want to experience community. You have to put your feet down and grow some roots. Be present with the people that are in your life. But here's what I know is true. It is always worth it. Every single time. It doesn't mean every relationship has a happy ending. It doesn't mean it always works out exactly how you want it to. But Romans 8:28 said that God works all things together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. So every moment, every circumstance, every relationship, every failed relationship still is worked together for your growth and your good if you love God and are called according to his purposes. I'm going to pray, and when I wrap up, I want to share a couple of quick announcements with you, but we're going to have some students that are hanging out in our prayer room over here, and if you want to unpack this, if you want to talk to somebody, maybe even share what is the hardest for you or where you want to grow this semester in community, they would love to unpack that with you. But let me pray for us, and then we'll be done.